Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a seriously fascinating comparison for you today in the European EV market. We are putting the Renault Mégane E-Tech head-to-head against the Alfa Romeo Junior. Now, our goal here is to give you some real, clear value by cutting straight through all the marketing noise. We're going to dig into the raw engineering data, the architectural blueprints, and how these cars actually feel out on the road. Because, as you'll see, these are two vehicles that might look like direct competitors, but they are playing completely different games. So if you really want to understand the true DNA of modern electric vehicles, you are in the exact right place. Let's dive in.
So think about these two vehicles on paper for a second. They share a very similar footprint, they're both fighting it out in that ultra-competitive compact crossover space, and they both desperately want the attention of the modern European driver. But does sharing a similar segment mean they share the same soul? Well, that's exactly the myth we're going to bust today. Because what sits beneath the sheet metal of these two cars literally couldn't be more different.
Here is our quick roadmap for this explainer. We're going to break this down into 6 rapid-fire rounds. 1. Visual illusions. 2. Comparing architectures. 3. Comfort versus dynamics. 4. The engine challenge. 5. The price of choice. And finally, round 6, the final verdict.
Okay, let's kick things off with round 1, visual illusions. You know, it's so incredibly easy to walk into a dealership, see a Megane E-Tech and an Alfa Junior, and just assume they're built from the exact same playbook. I mean, the Megane is a C-segment crossover, the Junior is technically a B SUV, but their proportions really trick the eye into seeing them as direct peers. But here's the thing, that similarity, it is purely an aesthetic illusion. They share absolutely zero industrial DNA. No shared bolts, no shared software. Actually, they don't even share the same underlying philosophy of what an electric car should fundamentally be.
Which brings us perfectly to round 2, comparing architectures. This is where we get to the real plot twist.
To really understand these cars, you have to look at the foundation they are built on, and it is a stark contrast. Renault uses their CMF-EV platform. This is what we call a native-born electric architecture. The Alliance built this from the ground up to be an EV and absolutely nothing else. Full stop. Alfa Romeo, on the other hand, uses the CMP or eCMP platform from Stellantis. This is a multi-energy architecture. Think of it like a giant automotive Swiss Army knife. It was explicitly designed to be flexible, able to house a traditional gas engine just as easily as an electric motor. And honestly, this one foundational choice dictates almost everything else about how these cars behave.
So, let's talk about that behavior in round 3, comfort versus dynamics. How does all that engineering translate to your everyday drive? Well, it sets up a classic battle. Let's start with Renault, who we can call the digital pioneer. Because they used a dedicated EV platform, they poured all their energy into technological fluidity and sheer comfort. You get Google Automotive for the infotainment, which is basically the gold standard right now for maps and voice recognition. The cabin is super quiet, heavily soundproofed, and packed with soft-touch materials. It just feels cozy. The suspension is tuned beautifully for everyday comfort and efficiency. It really is the ultimate digital companion. Now, it's not totally flawless. You will spot some hard plastics tucked away in less visible spots, and the wireless charging pad is, frankly, a bit awkward to use. But overall, it's incredibly refined. Then, in total contrast, you have the Alfa Romeo Junior, the analog athlete. Alfa cares about the pure driving experience above basically everything else. If you look at their Veloce trim, it comes with hardware you almost never see in this class. We're talking a Torsen limited slip differential, super direct steering, and a custom suspension setup. Inside, it's a driver's dream. Telescopic instruments, subaltar Alcantara sports seats, and, praise be, real physical buttons for the climate control. They want you to have that tactile, analog interaction. The trade-off for all that sporty, multi-energy focus? The hard plastics on the door panels are pretty noticeable, and you're definitely sacrificing some rear passenger space compared to the Megane.
All right, let's pop the proverbial hood. Round 4, the engine challenge.
This is where those two philosophies really collide. Renault uses a wound-rotor synchronous motor. Now, why does that matter? It uses 0 rare earth metals, and it gives you great high-speed efficiency and heat management. Alfa uses standard permanent magnet motors. They're reliable and efficient, but they're standard parts shared across the whole Stellantis group. Then there's the battery. Renault managed to build this incredibly thin 110mm dedicated battery pack. It sits super low, which drops the car's center of gravity. Alfa's battery is great, but its shape has to fit into a chassis that might also need to hold a gas tank in other parts of the world. And lastly, Renault builds their inverter and onboard charger specifically for this car, while Alfa relies on standard, mass-produced Stellantis parts to achieve massive scale. To put it simply, And pulling a direct quote from our source material here, the Megane offers superior powertrain design as a born electric project, while the Junior is a more conservative, standard, and versatile solution. It's highly specialized design on one side versus modular, mass-market versatility on the other.
So what does all of this cost? Let's move to round 5, the price of choice.
Looking at the numbers, things start out surprisingly close. The Renault Mégane E-Tech in its base techno trims starts right around €38,350. The base Alfa Romeo Junior is just a hair higher at €39,800, so we're only looking at a €1,450 difference at the entry level. However, if you actually want to unlock that dynamic, sporty alpha DNA we just talked about, the Torsen diff, the aggressive steering, the sport seats, you have to jump up to the Junior Veloce trim, and that commands a massive premium, pushing the price all the way up to €49,400. Now, just a quick heads up, these are list prices as of July 2026. In the real world, out on the dealership lot, your mileage is definitely going to vary based on financing deals, state incentives, and whatever your trade-in is worth. And if you're wondering if there's a middle ground for the Alpha, there is. Their intermediate trims, like the Sprint or TI, sit right between €41,700 and €44,600.
Which brings us to the end. Round 6, the final verdict. Let's tie all of this together.
So here's the absolute core takeaway. This isn't about which of these cars is objectively better. It's entirely about what you value as a driver. Step 1. If your priority is living that pure electric life, you want native EV efficiency, top-tier tech, and a wonderfully quiet cabin, the Renault Mégane E-Tech is your car. Step 2. If you want a car that still feels like a car, prioritizing dynamic driving quality, an aggressive stance, and that tactile analog feel, then the Alfa Romeo Junior is calling your name. And step 3, you have to weigh the cost. Renault gives you almost all of its best tech right at the base price. Alfa's true magic, on the other hand, is locked behind that premium Veloce price tag.
And that wraps up our analysis for today. I want to sincerely thank you for choosing to spend your time with us on this explainer. We truly appreciate your focused attention, which we absolutely never take for granted. We really hope this deep dive brought you some serious value and helped clarify what's actually going on underneath the hood of these two fascinating EVs.
Before you go, I want to leave you with one final question to chew on as we head into the next generation of driving. When you sit behind the wheel, what is it that really matters to you? Are you prioritizing the quiet, seamless efficiency of a born electric pioneer? Or do you crave that analog heartbeat and raw engagement of a sporty crossover? The choice is totally yours. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next explainer.